Good morning, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity to get out of the Beltway for a morning, and thank you, Sixto, for sharing your powerful story. We can't change what happened, but we can certainly make sure we can change things moving forward and prevent that from happening to anyone else again. My journey to ACF was through state government. At ACF, for those of you that don't know, the Administration for Children and Families, we run about 60 programs, $70 billion. Most of it courses through state governments, through your budgets, through your state HHS agency. We run the block grants for social services, for child care subsidy, for TANF, and then most near and dear to my heart, funding for foster care, adoption, and guardianship assistance. Coming from the state lens, I look at these programs from a state perspective, and if I could get the slides up, please. If we could go to the, if you could go back one to the first slide. This picture is how I viewed many of the programs that ACF runs from the state perspective. What this shows is this was a mural of pandas frolicking through a field at a Chinese restaurant. Chinese restaurant goes out of business, a new owner takes over, converts it to a Mexican restaurant, decides to keep the mural, but paint sombreros on the pandas. Too many of our programs, federal or otherwise, are just painting sombreros on the pandas. It might have made sense at one point in time, but they layer regulation on top of regulation, sub-regulatory guidance document on top of sub-regulatory guidance document, policy change after policy change, and at some point they no longer make sense. What I'm trying to do at ACF is look at, does the mural make sense or do we need to repaint? In my first 2 months, we've been doing a lot of benchmarking. I've got 43,000 pages of sub-regulatory guidance. That's 42,900 more than I want to end with. I've got $1.1 billion of paperwork burden I impose on the states, 32 million hours of man hours just filling out paperwork, most of which my agency does nothing with. If I can get those burdens down, I can return $1.1 billion to the taxpayers and deploy those dollars to more productive use than they're currently doing. Where I'm going to spend my disproportionate time and energy, besides barbecuing the administrative burden and dismantling the administrative state, is I'm going to spend my disproportionate time and energy on ensuring a home for every child, for all the reasons that Sixto aptly described. You might have seen in recent weeks, President Trump signed an executive order called Fostering the Future. This was championed heavily by his wife, our First Lady, Melania Trump, who has made foster care improvement, especially for older youth, a core part of her personal advocacy. The President's executive order is a whole of government, system-wide reform, asking many agencies to do many different things. I'm but one small part of that, but the component we're going to provide is focusing states' time and energy on getting a home for every child. How I got to that is, when I ran a state child welfare system, I was perplexed by this trend. Before running the state child welfare system, I was our state budget director, so I look at things through a very budget-heavy lens. This was my curve of the number of foster kids, peaked in 19 and was on a decline. My guess is every one of your states has a similar pattern. We've been on a nationwide decline in the number of foster kids coming into the system for a number of different reasons. But when you overlay the budget, the blue line, the number of kids and the budget generally aligned through 2019, and then I had the hockey stick graph of doom, the logarithmic growth in my budget post-2019. Why were the number of kids going down while the costs were going up? And it was because we, like most states, started to have a shortage of foster homes. When we didn't have enough foster homes to care for kids, we started putting them in non-traditional settings, Airbnbs, short-term rentals. We started overusing congregate care, particularly out-of-state congregate care. It's costly and it leads to the worst outcomes for children. This is one of the few areas where the best outcomes of children and your best outcomes for your budget director's blood pressure perfectly align. So what we did, similarly, instead of painting more sombreros on the pandas and saying, I'm gonna double down, we went back to basics and said, what are our cost drivers? What is driving cost in the system? And there's 4 cost drivers. These are Idaho's numbers, so you can overlook the numbers, but the concept is gonna hold in any state. Number one thing that drives your budget is how many people are coming through your front door. Too many child welfare directors take the position that I don't control my front door, courts control my front door. That's not necessarily true. You can control your front door with the practices, your policies, and in the infrastructure that you have for prevention. The more you can do to prevent kids coming into the foster care system with robust mental health supports, substance use disorder supports, oversight, and other things like that, you can flip the script. In Idaho, I had 85% of my kids coming into placements, 15 in prevention. I said I wanted to flip that script and have 85% kept in their home, kept with their family, provide effective supports, because children do best with their family. Foster care should be the tool of last resort. When you cross that iron curtain into fostering care, there is permanent, irreparable harm both to the family and the child. It should be the tool of last resort. When the child comes into the system, your next budget driver is how quickly they exit the system. How quickly they exit the system is a function of both length of stay and placement decision. Where you place them is one of the most important decisions you make. As Sixto said, every study shows children do best with family, family broadly defined as kin, so relatives as well as trusted loved ones, Sunday school teachers, football coaches, and others. If you place kids with kin and trusted loved ones, they maintain religious traditions, cultural traditions. They do better, they reunify faster or find permanency faster at lower cost. In Idaho, we're very conservative budget-wise, but I paid $16 a day for kin or for non-relative foster care. If a child ended up in a congregate care setting because I didn't have kin or I did not have a non-relative to care for them, I paid $385 a day. I was paying orders of magnitude higher for worse outcomes. So we engaged in a whole host of policy reforms, stroke of pen efforts, rapid cycle innovation to cut through red tape. We got all of the red tape out of the way for licensing. I don't care if their rabbits are up to date on their vaccine schedule. Are they willing to open their heart and their home to a child? I don't care if they have a 4-foot fence around every body of water. In rural Idaho, there's no canal that has a 4-foot fence abutting the entire canal. What message are we sending? I opened an office of faith-based initiatives to go church to church, synagogue to synagogue, house of worship to house of worship, to recruit new foster families. This is an area where we boiled it down to a ratio, the number of homes to kids, and I could make progress on both sides of that ratio. I could get my number of kids coming into the system down through prevention, 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 prevention. I could get my numerator of number of homes up through kin, deregulate, deregulate, deregulate. As Sixto said, we made significant progress in a very short period of time. Nationally, the numbers are frankly bleak. For every 100 kids coming into the system, we have 57 homes to care for them. We can do better, and we must do better. And I can assure you, from the federal perspective, under the leadership of President Trump, First Lady Melania Trump, Secretary Kennedy, I will put every ounce of energy and strength into this to get the red tape out of the way, to empower states to take on initiatives that will improve their number of foster homes relative to the number of foster kids, and I invite you to join us in this journey to help us ensure a home for every child. Thank you all for what ALEC does.